Welcome back to Hot Rod Guy Garage. This will be another episode on the 66 Mustang budget drag car. So follow me along through the intro and I'll be back. So alright guys, in our last video we got the engine and transmission mocked up in the car. So from here we need to go in here and put some some thread inserts, not frame inserts, but some thread inserts into the frame of the Mustang for the tilt front end. Previously I had mounted it with self-tapping screws for mock-up purposes with the intention of putting thread inserts in it. And we need to get a core support built. So that's what we're going to get into in this video. So follow me along and I'll be back. Like I said, we need to put I need to drill these out and put some nut inserts here and here for our tilt mechanism for our front end. I need to trim this up and cap these on both sides. And then we can possibly start on the core support. Alright, I went in here in the background, put nut inserts in. I cut out 2 pieces of plate. That frame rail's got to be rolled in over there for the front end clearance. This one's flat, so as you notice, this one's square, that one's cut oblong. That's because we have to roll around that edge slightly. I went in there inside the frame, used one of them conical wire brushes, cleaned it up, sprayed some weld through primer back as far as I could. We are going to have to spray something inside these frame rails eventually, but that'll give it some protection for now. And I also sprayed our place with some weld through. So, got them capped off. Got that one sprayed with a little primer over there. I'm going to let this cool off a few minutes, spray it with a little primer. And we'll go a little further. Got a bunch of little stuff to do, guys, so I'm trying to cover it all in this video. Making these plates wasn't no different than anything I've done as far as patch panel stuff goes. You measure your hole. You know, in this case, we measure our hole. And we cut down a piece of sheet metal. You're going to hold it up there and spot weld it in. You know, tap it where needed, grind where needed. And in the end, you got a capped off frame rail. So, let me get back to it. So, alright, I'm ready to start on the core support. Since I don't have a radiator, I had to find something that was the same height as the measured dimensions of the radiator that I intend to buy. And surprisingly, this piece of board is exactly there. So what I'm going to do, I am going to bend a piece of 1/2-inch tube with a hand bender. And what we're going to do, we're going to come in here, we're going to come forward at about a 30-degree angle right here from this tab that I spot welded on these tubes. I spot weld these tabs on the same spot. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to come here to the edge. I'm going to come up here, and it looks like we're going to have to go about 1 foot for our first bend. So 12 inches there. About 12 inches out there. So that's 24 plus 46. 24 plus 26, and that'll give us our total measurement of the length of tube we need. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut a piece of tube. I come up about 50 inches. I'm going to cut one probably about 60 inches. I'm going to leave it long. And there's going to be a reason for that. And we'll get into that here in just a moment. Alright, I lost a bunch of footage here. Just from random things happening around the shop. So what I done, I took my tabs on a cage right here. I drilled a hole out and I put a nut insert in there. And I'm going to take a little tab like this and a bolt. That way I can remove this core support. It's going going to be I'm just going to put them in there loose, like this. I took a piece of tube, I bent it, and I bent it. It is offset a little bit. I've done that on purpose, so these tabs would line up. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to split the end of this tube, so this will slide inside, and I can get this just a little bit closer to the edge of this board, which mimics the top flange on our radiator. So hopefully you can kind of understand what's going on. I'm just going to take and just going to notch this on both sides as straight as I can. Hopefully this will slide onto that tab slightly. Looks like I might have cut that one just a little offset. So, yes I did. So, the last few clips have been a rolling tire fire, and I lost a bunch of footage, guys. Meaning that something happened in between where I just jumped in there and addressed some of this stuff. So, I'm going to flip around and show you where I'm at. I've got the core support pretty much finished up at this point. Unfortunately, I didn't get to film all of it and cover exactly what I wanted to. But sometimes that's the way this stuff goes. Same with the 65 Mustang project. There's some stuff that happens that gets in the videos and some stuff that don't. Kind of like on the front seat video when I put the door panel stuff on that car, one of those little plastic washers fell off. I didn't clip it all the way out because I didn't want to lose most of my footage, but I did go back in there and put that plastic clip back in. It's kind of the same way with this. Sometimes, you know, stuff happens and I have to go back and fix something, and I may have to use a segment of video that I'm not real happy with. So let me flip it around. So what I've done, like I said, I just bent a piece of 1/2 inch tube, 1/2 inch steel tube around through here. I cut 2 tabs. I ended up changing those tabs to head. I made 2 more. I put a brace in the center. This runs up right at the top of the edge of our radiator. And I should be able to add a couple of flanges on this, a couple little tabs to bolt to the radiator, and a couple saddles down here at the bottom after I get a radiator. I did add a center support brace. So this thing is good and stiff and don't have to worry about it flexing. And it is lightweight stuff, guys. It's not going to hurt anything, just hold the radiator in. We're not using it for any kind of structural support. So what I'm going to do now, I put a self-tapping screw down here after I mark my center, where center's at. And in this case, I'm not going to put a nut insert in it. I am actually going to drill this tube all the way through. And I'm just going to put a bolt and double nut it. I'm going to put a nut behind this and a nut on the front side. That way if I ever got to come in here, all I got to do is take the outside nut off, just pull forward just a little bit, and the whole core support will come off. So guys, it's next day. I come in here, I scuffed this tube down with a red Scotch-Brite pad, and I sprayed a little primer on it. So I'm going to flip around and show you where we're at. And I think we're pretty much almost done with underhood fabrication stuff. So let me flip it around. So as you can see, it's installed. It is strong enough that I could probably stand on this, but I'm not going to because it's 1/2 inch thin wall tube. We got our bolt through there. That's where we can unbolt it up here. You can take this bolt and that bolt out over there, and the core support will come out. make it easy to pull an engine and transmission out of it, in addition to taking those 3 bolts out and the chain for the safety on the tilt front end. And all that stuff will just sit right out of the way. So should make for fast engine changes in the car. And if you're going to build a drag and drive car like what we're doing, you need to make sure that this thing's going to be easy to work on, because it's going to break inevitably. And if you're on the side of the road or in a parts store parking lot, you want to make sure you can get parts easily. So that said, I've done everything in my power to make it easy to get an engine transmission out of the car. So there's only a few more little small things we may have to add in the future, like some tabs for a set of horns, for the overflow bottle for the radiator, because you've got to have those things in a race car. Not necessarily the horn, but in the drag and drive, if you're going to do these big events like Sick Week or Six Smokies or any of the larger events, you need to have horns, you need to have working lights and signals. So the lights and signals will come when we start doing the wiring stuff. But I think now we're pretty good to move forward and see what else we can get into in this video. So there's an elephant in the room we need to address with the car also, and that's that rear tire clearance. Unfortunately, I think that's about the point we're at now. I sat here and thought around what we need to do next, and I think that's about the point where we're at. So let me flip it around. So if you remember back, I had some clearance issues when I went from our 28 10.5 Mickey Thompson mock-up tires to my 28x9 Hoosiers. I actually lost all my forward clearance up here. So there's a couple different ways you can address this. You could just cut this and call it good, because we're not gonna have no issues anywhere else all the way around. The old school way, one of them, was to take a front fender flare out of some car that you could find and use it. This is the front fenders off this car, and as you can see, there is a little difference in the shape of them. They're actually larger, and the reason why they're larger is so you can turn your front wheels. So that's option 1. Option 2, another way they done it back in the 70s, they took a piece of conduit, they would bend it around a 55-gallon drum until they got the shape. Obviously, this is not what I'm doing, because this piece of tube is too small, but then you could radius your wheel well with this new shape. And yet there was another way you could do it. And that was just cut the wheel well out the shape you wanted it, and then take a piece of small, like 1/4-inch steel rod, like this right here, bend it to the shape that you cut out, and weld it to the quarter panel. Along with, in that time frame, you had all your 60s and 70s fiberglass flares that a lot of people hacked the car out and, screwed them on there, riveted them on, and bondoed them in the car. So there's lots of options of how to do this. And that's something I've got to think about. But first, we need to get the clearance that we need, and then we can think about how we're going to, get it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to figure out exactly how much clearance I need. You need at least an inch around the drag slick, because this tire is going to grow at higher speeds. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to come in here. I'm going to hold this against the tallest part of the tire right here. And I'm going to try to figure out how deep our wheelhouse is before we get to the front cap and that rocker panel. And that's about 1.25 inches. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take it down here in the tightest portion right here. And I'm just going to mark about 1.25 inches. 1.25 inches on up here, and try to figure out how I can take this line and split it. Now, I'm not one into big flares. I don't like huge flares. So I got to figure out how I can get the clearance I need, and then we can figure out what we're doing with that. So I'm going to put you guys on time lapse. I'm going to take me off the line here, the cut line, and right now I'm just going to take this portion loose. I'm not going to cut it all the way out. I'm just going to take it loose where I can pull it out slightly and pull it forward and see what it looks like. And I decided not to put y'all on time lapse quite yet, because there's a couple different ways we can do this, and I want to show you both ways. So the best thing you can do is get you some fine line tape like this. I know we got about 1.25 inches to the front cap in that wheel well. So what I want to do, I just want to take a piece of this fine line tape and slightly adhere it here, and I'm just going to follow this quarter panel flare on up here just a little bit. I just want to kind of put this on here to visualize what it'd look like with a radius wheel well. That'll give me just kind of a rough idea here. Kind of, I can step back and look at it, see what we got. And that don't look too awful bad, stepping back from it here. It's a little crooked, but we could lose that. It wouldn't be the end of the world. But when you do that, you lose the flare, the factory flare. And that's where a lot of them would weld the conduit or a round rod to this quarter panel. Then you'd build your filler up to the back side of it. And that would give you a little lip. A lot of them, if the round rod wasn't enough, that's when they went to the conduit, and then the conduit would give you a bigger lip. So I'm going to have to split this, so I'm going to pull me a secondary line just for now to kind of see if I can flow this in without it looking stupid. When I say flow it in, is I would be splitting it below this line and then moving this lip forward. Try to see kind of where it gets me as far as the way things look. So that would definitely up our clearance up here. This rearward clearance will open up when this lip's rolled in. Unfortunately, the front's not going to open up when it's rolled, so it's actually going to have material removed. So how much material is the question. So let's put you on time lapse. I'm going to make a cut here and kind of see what we got. Alright, and I got this cut. I pulled the wheel off so I could get to the back side to remove that portion of the wheelhouse. But if you take this, you bring this on up here, and it'll go in. And obviously we'll have to mark this when we weld it. If we come in here, I can now stick my hand in here And that's what I would consider a minimal amount of clearance. But will probably work just fine. So, like I said, there's a bunch of thinking to do here, and a bunch of different ways we could do this. And we could certainly just partially come in here and section this, but that will give us the same amount of clearance in the front as the rear. And more than likely, it will be more than enough clearance. So, like I said, this tire can grow anywhere from 3/4 of an inch up to 1.5 inches in diameter. And in the rear, we have 1 inch. Up here at the front, with this pushed all the way forward, as far as it'll go, we have 1.1 inches. So, more than likely that 1.1 inches will be fine, but we really don't want to play this game of will it clear. So I think at this point I need to figure out a shape that I want, and if we're going to use the front fenders, wheel arches, or if I'm going to just get some round rod or some conduit and cut it on up a little bit and make it a little bit bigger. So that's some thinking I've got to do. So this begins a bunch of figuring out what I'm doing. So I took some duct tape and stuck the front wheel well up on there so I kind of stand back and look at it, so I can flip around and show you guys. It doesn't add a tremendous amount of clearance. It gets us to about 1.25 inches. And I would consider that probably, I want to at least have 1.5 inches. You know, we're not racing 1/4 mile here, so we don't really have to worry about super high speeds, but you know, 120, 125 mile an hour is not out of the realm of things in the range that I want this car to run. So, you know, there's no real chart to figure out exactly how much this tire will grow, but you don't want it to start hitting the thing because it cuts you slicks. You know, it could put you in a bad and dangerous situation. So let me flip it around. So you gotta imagine that other gray lip's not there, but it's not quite straight either. But doing it that way, and I brought it up pretty close to, you know, what I thought it needed to be up there. So that's about 1.25 inches. Like I said, about 1.25 inches, maybe 1.5 inches, somewhere around there, up there. And about the same in the rear. We're not going to lose a whole lot of, you know, things. But it does give me the option that I might be able to, once that's welded in there, to push that flare out a little bit up here in the front, flex it forward, and same in the rear. But the shape don't look bad. I like the shape. But sometimes keeping the shape ain't necessarily what's best for your safety. So I think at this point, I probably need to go get a couple sticks of conduit. And I'm going to bend a couple of different shapes up in it. And just kind of eyeball here, because we can go about 1 inch on the inner wheelhouse before it separates for the 1/4 pound. So we got that going for us there. The front, I can cut it all the way back, you know, until we're at the cap at the rocker panel on the inside. So I may go ahead and trim this out some more and see what we get, because it's really hard to kind of visualize this stuff and figure out exactly how much room you're going to have when you still got metal in the way. So I've already got everything down here to cut. I've already got a mess on the floor. So let's get to it. And alright, I got that wheel well roughly cut out. There's a little lumpy spot right there, but the maximum we can get on this thing, especially up here in the front, is 1 3/4 inches. So that should be more than good up there. There's a little more than we got in the back, but what I done, I just took the factory front fender and held it up there about where I thought it looked good. Now I just marked around the bottom of it. So I guess the next thing we need to do, we need to stick this back up there. I might have to run a self-tapping screw in it to hold it on, since the duct tape wasn't really doing the job. So let's see what that looks like. And alright, I got that screwed on there. And as you can see, I went in here and I split this in a couple places so I could bring that rear arch back a little more. And I still got a little bit more I need to cut off right there. But I really like the flow of this line. And I think that will do everything we want to do. Like I said, got about 1 3/4 inches up here. We'll have about 2 inches back here in the back. And I think that will be just about fine. And if you avoid the gas where the quarters beat all the heck, we'll have to beat that back out too. But it does give us a little flare up here in the front. It brings us just a little bit more than stock all the way back around. And in the rear, it's going to bring us just a little bit more positive too. So what I need to do now is go in here and wire brush this real good. I'm going to fold up a little lip around the edge. That way we got a lip to attach to the wheel well lip on the fender section. So let's get to that and I'll be back. So what we got, like I said, I just been a little, like a 1/2 inch lip all the way around through here. And what that does, that's going to allow me to weld this inner wheelhouse and outer quarter panel together all the way down through here, get it all attached. And unfortunately, as much as I don't like overlapping welds here, guys, in this situation, that's what we're going to have to do in order to remain integral right here. And best I mean by that, I'll flip it around, meaning it's going to be the strongest way to do this. As much as I tell y'all not to overlap metal, unfortunately this is how this was done back in the day. They wouldn't have cut this arch out. And if I cut the whole arch out, I mean the quarter panel section, the wheelhouse is a little shorter than the lip I've been up, if that makes sense. There's not a whole lot of metal to work with and a flatter plane up in there in the wheelhouse. We got plenty of up and down room, so it's not like we need to make a ton more room. So what I've done, like I said, we bend that up. I'm going to weld the existing quarter lip to the wheelhouse lip, just like it is. And I wire brushed real good, weld through, primered it. I will probably go back in there and spray some kind of enamel on it too, once I get the welds attached through there. Need to clean the back side of this fender. Get it screwed back to the quarter where I split it where it would sit flat. I need to go in there and weld all that stuff up. I can pull it back off, wire brush the inside of it, and then we can go further from there. So, got this all welded up. We're good and strong here. I got this all ground down. I come in here and push some of that dent out. It's pretty tight. Probably gonna have to get the stud puller out and pull the rest of that out. So we got a decent flange around through here. So I'm gonna spray a little more weld through primer on this, and then I'll be back. Alright, so it's the next day. And what I done, I ground all that off. You've seen the fast forward video. Went here and sprayed some weld through primer. I sprayed some enamel under it also. Same on the back side of the flare. So I'm going to flip around and I'm going to show you where I'm at and what we're going to have to do from here to get this attached. So I went back in here small wire brush and wire brushed all this off that was past the line up here. So I'm going to have to pull some of these dents out in this quarter panel. But for now, we need to get these pieces where I split this, where I could kind of change the angle a little bit. Where I split this, when they go in here, I need to get these welded up. And up here, I need to get these where they fit down on the car better and get those welded up. So I'm gonna drag the welder over here. We'll get started doing that. Alright, so I got that flare all welded up and match our quarter panel shape. Now I need to go in here and we need to pull some of these dents out so that they'll sit flush up against the quarter. So I'm going to drag out the dent puller. We'll start pulling some of them out. As you can see, this quarter panel is very, very rough. Well, we've got some more weld through primer sprayed on there. I pulled some of this dent out too. This quarter panel is just beat all the crap, so not really going to be losing anything doing this the way we're going to do it. So car really needed both quarters put in anyway, and you know, both doors, both quarter panels. You know, it probably wouldn't hurt to put a trunk lid on it. Budget, guys, budget. So we're going to do some budget body work on this thing. So it's going to be rough, but you know, this is what we're going to do. So let's get to it. Let's get this flare attached to the passenger side and we'll see where we get. So I got it spotted all in there and spotted the wheelhouse. There's a couple little issues we're going to have to take care of. I'm going to have to clip on this quarter a little bit to kind of flow that in. We're going to have to make a plate up here to fill the gap right there. But I'm pretty happy overall with the arch myself. Late 60s, early 70s look. It's a very small flare, kind of flared more at the bottom, radius but not overly obvious, I guess. Should look pretty good with some body filler on it. Like I said, this thing's gonna need a bunch of body filler, guys. A ton. Like, everything's rough. Everything we're messing with is rough as far as body goes. So I'm going to go in here, I'm going to cut the bottom of this quarter to kind of flow it in, because the front fender arches are a little short. I think it will look fine if I can cut that quarter in kind of a swoop right there, fold the wheelhouse back a little bit, spot weld it to the quarter. Then when we do our body work, we can flow that flare on into the bottom down there. So let me get to that and then I'll be back. So I come here, I just sprayed a little the Transtar primer on it right there. As you can see, we got an even line there, and it'll kind of flow once that's molded in. You got to address that gap over there, and I've been working on the patch panel for it. And I've got one cut out here. I sprayed it with some weld-through primer. This right here will go right in there. We can get it welded in here in just a moment. And got that all patched up down there. I sprayed a little gray primer on to keep it from flash rusting. So once that seam's sealed in there, with our body work out here, I think we'll be fairly okay. So I guess the next thing we need to do is stick the tire back on it and have a look and see what it looks like. Well, got the wheel stuck back on there. I think we're gonna have more than plenty of room now. So got way more than plenty of room all the way around. Like I said, get about 1 3/4 inches in the front, a little over 2 in the back. So 2 fingers up here, 3 in the back. And here's our side view, our extreme side view, and a rear view. I think that's going to work out pretty well. I don't know. I'm pretty happy with how it looks as far as the flare and as far as the tire clearance. So now what we gotta do is repeat this process on the other side, right? Unfortunately, that will have to be in a later video because this one is already starting to run along. So guys, make sure you check out our friends over at Kentucky Mustang. There is a discount code down in the description below. And if you haven't yet, make sure you hit that like button on this video, share them with your friends. If you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button because it does help the channel to grow. If you are a subscriber, I greatly appreciate you guys, and I look forward to everybody's comments down below. So, until the next one, guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you at the next one.